Hello there, friends. This is Spencer Michaud, and today we're going to be doing a special preview of our Decan Walk 25-26, a year-long program where we're going to be studying the decans together, creating community, sharing our stories, learning about astrology and how to apply it practically to our everyday lives. I'm going to give you a little presentation today to get you all hyped up for Decan Walk, answer any questions that you may have today. If you want to put some chart information in the chat, maybe we can read some charts later in the vein of Decan Walk, like talk about how the decans might be affecting you personally right now and in your chart moving forward. So yeah, we're probably going to be here for a little bit. So really grateful to see you here today. A couple announcements before we dive into it today. So welcome everybody. You can find me over at spencermichaud.com. I have all sorts of cool stuff over there, including the Decan Walk. But if you are looking for astrological services like a reading or like a transit reading to plan your weeks and months ahead, I have offerings there at the Book Now button. You can also sign up for classes over there as well. You can register for Decan Walk. You can look at astrological tutoring, all sorts of things. You can find me at spencermichaud.com. Of course, Decan Walk is starting on Monday, October the 6th, which is this Monday as I'm recording it. So we're in the final stretch here. If you've been kind of peering around saying, hey, you know what, is this for me? Maybe this is the time to take the leap. If you're resonating with this information today, I would love to have you on board. We're going to be going every first and third Monday for the next 12 months, starting on Monday. And we're going to be just sharing our stories with one another. We're going to be learning about the decans. I will tell you all about it today. So if this looks cool, I will give you all the details that you need to know. I would love for you to be able to participate. Payment plans available, sliding scales if you're struggling financially. I just want you to be able to receive this information. So reach out if you have any questions today, or email me at spencermichaudastrology@gmail.com. I also have a beautiful partner, Tanya Andrews of Third Coast Mojo, and she has some cool new stuff in her shop. So check out some of the new things she's offering. Coming into the fall here, she's got a beautiful Sun and Leo Boss Fix powder, herbal powder that helps smooth over any challenges you might be having with authority figures or anything like that. I know that's always sometimes can be a challenging experience if you've got a boss that you're having some difficulties with. This is great stuff. Works really well. You can do sprinkle it on your candles in your altar space and maybe sweeten up that relationship a little bit and be able to move forward. She's got all sorts of cool things too. A lot of cool Venus and Libra stuff right now. Mars and Scorpio protection type of things, all sorts of cool stuff. So check Tanya out at Third Coast Mojo on Etsy.com. I also have a newsletter if you want to get updates and when I'm going live, when I'm offering new classes, when Third Coast Mojo things are dropping. Subscribe to the newsletter and you'll get updates with that along with some of the current astrological transits. And then finally, if you want to support the work that I'm doing here today, you can buy a super chat while I'm live, or you can go over to buymeacoffee.com and become a patron over there. All of your support is extremely appreciated. It is a great way to support the channel, keep the lights on here, keep me doing the work that I'm doing. And I am so grateful for all of you who have been able to contribute in that way. The easiest way to contribute today, just like this video, subscribe to the channel, tell your friends about it. But if you are a person of means and you want to support in that regard, it is always welcome. So thank you, friends. Okay, so I'm going to check in with our chat here. We got some friends stopping in. What's up, Susanna? Moi, Spencer. Hello, Susanna. How you doing? Susanna's joining us from Finland. I love my Finnish friends. How you doing, my friends? Nice to see you. Hope you're having a nice beginning to fall over there in Finland and that all the nice autumnal things are happening over there by you. Wonderful to see you, my friend. K-Wow is stopping in and says, howdy, Spencer. I'm glad to be able to hear more about this because I wasn't available the last times you went live about the Decan Walk. Ooh, awesome, K-Wow. Well, I will do my best to give you all the details today and see if it's a good fit for you. I would love to have you on board if it's something that you're interested in. Javiera is here. What's up, Javiera? Nice to see you. Hope you're doing well, my friend. Thank you for coming today and for supporting the channel with all your wonderful insights. Okay, so friends, Decan Walk. I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to show you what we are looking at here. So this is our Decan Walk 25-26 preview. So you could see a picture of, me in the middle of 36 different tarot cards that are syncretized with each of the 10-degree sections of the zodiac known as the decans. And this is sort of a little, I don't know, area of expertise that I've cultivated over a number of years. And if you're a fan of the channel here, you've seen me talking about the decans, and really helps us get some specificity. So today we're just going to talk about what it might be like to join in class, what it might be like to go on this journey, and what kind of benefits you might receive from signing up for something like this. So a little bit about myself. If you're new here, I started out my journey as a musician, a professional musician and teacher. I used to teach songwriting classes and guitar classes and private guitar instruction and songwriting and creativity classes, all of these interesting things. And that helped prepare me to become a professional astrologer. I've been studying astrology since my early college years, which at this point, it's about 25 years. And I had a really interesting experience where my beautiful partner, Tanya, bought me a book called Astrology and the Authentic Self by Demetra George, an incredible book on traditional astrology. And it just was the right book at the right moment. And it just sort of, completely all the light bulbs were going off about astrology, and it made me want to dive into traditional astrology. And I started listening to people like Chris Brennan on the Astrology podcast. I found out about the United Astrology Conference right as I was getting into traditional astrology. And that's kind of like a big conference that you can see all these different astrologers gathering together from around the world. And I got a full ride scholarship to the United Astrology Conference, and I met one of my teachers that I worked with after that, Adam Ellenboss from Nightlight Astrology, and I worked with him for a number of years going through his programs. And then eventually that led me to starting to work with clients and starting this YouTube channel, Spencer Michaud Astrology. And I have a lot of you that have been here over the course of the channel, that had this channel going since about 2018 or so. And just really so grateful for the community we've been able to build here. I'm also Sophie's dad. If any of you are joining me from Sag Moon Magic, my beautiful daughter Sophie has an Instagram and TikTok channel called Sag Moon Magic, and I'm just always excited about welcoming folks that she's turned on to the channel over here as well. Okay, our philosophy. So what do we believe in here at Spencer Michaud Astrology? What do I believe in? What am I trying to bring to this experience? What are we trying to create as a group experience for Decan Walk? So the main guiding light for Decan Walk is creating community. We try to do that here on the YouTube channel through meeting up weekly. We're going to be doing that on a more intimate level in the Decan Walk by studying astrology, divination, learning tarot, learning about our mythological connections to those 10-degree sections, to those tarot cards, but specifically through collaborative storytelling. So collaborative storytelling is an extremely powerful way to create an understanding of what we're going through in our own lives through witnessing each other's journey, but especially in a supportive environment. If you've been following along, you probably know a few placements that I have in my chart, one of which is the Sun in Cancer 2, the second decan of Cancer. And a lot of the themes about that decan, called the Walled Garden in Austin Coppock's wonderful book, 36 Faces, is about creating safe spaces where it is comfortable and safe for people to share and to learn, and specifically to grow and connect with one another. So that's something that is really important to me, is creating that container to be able to learn in an environment that's not only practical, but also supportive, so that we can see healthy growth in each other's lives. There's going to be ups and downs when you work together with people over the course of an entire year. And really what we're doing with Decan Walk is we're not necessarily taking the quick or the easy way out. We're experiencing some of the roller coaster that we experience as life, but seeing how those specific transits affect not only our own lives, but the lives of others. So we have the chart up on the screen right as people are talking, like their charts, the transits that are going on. And as we're sharing our stories and our experiences, we're connecting those stories with the astrology of the moment and teaching in that style. It's an immersion kind of experience. It is gaining fluency through immersing ourselves in those symbols, through understanding how it's working in our everyday lives. So we can find specificity when we're using the decans through the diversity that we see of these symbols playing out through multiple lenses, multiple lives, multiple symbols. Now, connecting astrology with lived experience is one of the things that is so very important to me. In addition to a Cancer sun and a Taurus moon, I have a Virgo stellium. And one of the things you learn about Virgo is how do we take whatever we're learning and apply it to life. So we're going to have a healthy dose of practical advice for each other in Decan Walk. And we're really preparing each other for the not only being able to reflect on what we've experienced, but we're preparing each other for what's to come and being able to create those relationships with each other. Okay. So, why the decans? Why are we studying decans? What is a decan? Well, a decan is an interesting way of engaging with astrology because it is a powerful storytelling tool. It divides the zodiac into 36 phases or 10-degree sections of the zodiac, which gives us a lot more specific information than just the 12 30-degree sections that we normally would divide the zodiac into. The other really cool thing about the decans is it syncretizes and matches up with 36 tarot cards in the minor arcana of the Rider-Waite Tarot or of the other tarot decks if you've been experienced with those other types. But we use the Rider-Waite Tarot because it's one of the most influential decks that you can see out there. It's also a house for spirits and deities in Egyptian culture. So the ancient Egyptians believed that these were vessels or vehicles for different spiritual rulers or spirits. And this is interesting because this gives us a different lens to be able to see the astrological placement within. We'll talk about one today. We're going to talk about a spirit named Horkos, which is the spirit or ruler in the second decan of Libra. And all of these, we have all these deities coming to us from a fragmentary Hellenistic text called 36 Heirs of the Zodiac. The other thing that decans help us to do is it gives us a little bit of a minor dignity with having its own planetary ruler. So when the sun is in Libra, like it is today, we have the Venus being the ruler of Libra, or the steward of that home or that face, of that sign. Now, when we have a planet in its decan or face, there is a secondary ruler that is helping to color that. The sun today is in the face of Saturn. It's a Saturn-ruled face, and we'll talk about that. But it really gives a different coloration to the understanding of Libra in general, because this one's about commitment. This one's about binding oaths and contracts, which is not necessarily something you always hear about with Libra, which is where you hear more of the generalized things related to balance, peace, and harmony. But sometimes to get that peace and harmony, we need to make vows to one another and we need to commit to things. Okay, so with our charts, what are we doing with a chart? So we've got the chart of this talk here today up on the screen. And what I've got listed here is these are some slides from some of my Decan webinars that when you sign up for Decan Walk, you will get 12 Decan webinars that are each about 3.5 to 4 hours long that are just packed with information about not only the decans, but the tarot, mythological associations, fixed stars, and any planetary rulers associated with the signs and the decans. So these are some preview slides of what you would get when you purchase the Decan webinars along with the class. And it's built into the price. If you've purchased previous Decan webinars, reach out to me and you can get a discount on just the live sessions that we're going to be meeting up to do. Now, when we're looking at a chart, we're looking for a guest-host relationship. So in this chart, you see the sun is in the second 10-degree section of Libra, but it is hosted by Venus over here in the second decan of Virgo. So both of these planets have a condition called being in their fall, which means they're in places that are slightly uncomfortable for them. The sun is a planet that likes to individuate. It selects, it illuminates, right? When we have a planet in Libra, this is the exaltation of Saturn in addition to the domicile of Venus. And that Saturn's associated with darkness. It's associated with things sometimes that are hidden, that are cast into darkness. So it's an uncomfortable place for a planet that wants to individuate, because Saturn is much more concerned about the collective. Now, when Venus is in its exile here in this decan of Virgo, Venus is a planet that likes to bring things together, that likes to harmonize. It reunifies that which is separate. And this is a list of key terms from Robert Schmidt from Project Hindsight, one of the original translators of some of the ancient Greek that we use in traditional astrology today. So with a planet like Venus that's trying to reunify that which is separate and harmonize, when it is in a sign like Virgo that likes to destabilize, contest, and question, and cast things into different categories, it's a little bit of an uncomfortable place for Venus. Now, that would be one way to analyze it from a 30,000-foot vantage point. But when we start to learn about the decans, we see some kind of little special dignity that Venus has in the second decan of Virgo, because it has dignity by face. So that means that Venus is the planetary ruler of the second 10-degree section of Virgo. So a special skill that Venus has in the second 10-degree section of Virgo is being able to take a spiritual ideal and enclose it into matter, to protect it and to pass it on as a legacy. So even though we may have struggle, we may struggle a little bit with harmonizing right now, we may struggle a little bit with attracting, we have a special ability through our own efforts, which is something that we heard from Guido Bonatti, talking about a face ruler being someone in a foreign land that doesn't necessarily have the support of a benefactor or of a community, but makes their way through their own skill and effort. We may be able to infuse something into a body to be able to pass it on as a legacy to the next generation. And there's a special skill that Venus has in doing that. It is very much an artistic decan. You can see it syncretized with the 9 of Pentacles, if you're familiar with that card, in the Rider-Waite Tarot. So there's so much nuance that we can gain through studying something like the decans. All right. So as we move forward, let's talk about that tarot syncretization. So this is a really fascinating chart that I've created here that helps you to understand how the different decans and different parts of the zodiac are associated with the different suits in the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. So if you see on the screen here, I've written that the Rider-Waite-Smith deck consists of 78 cards that are divided into 22 major arcana without suits and 56 minor arcana that are further divided into 16 court cards, and then 4 suits of 10 cards each. When we remove the 4 aces that we see here, we are left with 36 decanic cards numbered 2 through 10. We have additional names and specifications that are later provided in both Golden Dawn's Book T and Aleister Crowley's Book of Thoth, which you will see in some of the decanic flashcards that I will be presenting today. So we take out those major arcana cards, we take out the aces, and we're left with those minor 2 through 10, right? And there's a little bit of a skeleton key to understanding which tarot card is associated with each decan. And it goes as thus. The fire signs, Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius, are all associated with the wands in tarot. The earth signs, Capricorn, Taurus, and Virgo, are associated with the pentacles. The air signs, Libra, Aquarius, and Gemini, with the suit of swords. And then finally, the water signs, Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces, are all associated with the suit of cups. Now, a mode in astrology is a type of sign that either initiates a season, sustains it, or is about to change into the next season. The cardinal signs are the ones that are the beginning of the seasons, such as Aries, Capricorn, Libra, and Cancer. And they correspond with the 2, 3, and 4 in the minor arcana. So here's our little equation that we have to do. If we say, okay, I've got the sun in Cancer 2. So I go and I say, okay, well, Cancer is a water sign. So I'm going to the suit of cups. Cancer is also a cardinal sign. So I am using the 2, 3, and 4. If I have the second decan of Cancer, it's going to be associated with the 3. So the Three of Cups is a cardinal water sign, and we're going to see the Three of Cups associated and syncretized with that particular decan in the zodiac. The fixed signs are all associated with 5, 6, and 7s in the minor arcana, and then the mutable signs with the 8, 9, and 10 cards. So if you're a mutable sign, Gemini, right? Pisces, Virgo, Sagittarius, one of your decanic cards is going to be numbered 8, 9, or 10 based on which degree it is in the zodiac. And then you have to go look for what type of element that sign is. Like if it's Gemini, it's going to be, let's say, first decan Gemini. If you're born in the end of May, you probably are going to have a planet like the sun associated with the 8 of Swords. Okay, so really interesting, like being able, and it's a good way to start memorizing which of these cards are associated with that, because these cards are beautiful for giving us visual reminders of what kind of experiences we might be having in our life. So to help you study that, I've created a series of decanic flashcards. These are digital flashcards that maybe we'll make into physical form at some point. But here you see Libra 1, 2, and 3. Remember, Libra is a cardinal air sign in the element of air, so we're using swords. Because it's a cardinal sign, we're using the 2, 3, and 4. Now, the cool thing about the decans is that it tells us a story over the course of a sign, right? When we have Libra here, Libra is the entrance into the dark part of the year in the northern hemisphere. And here we see in the first decan of Libra, we see a figure that looks like Mot. And Mot was a guardian to the underworld in Egyptian mythology who helped us to weigh and balance the weight of our heart against the weight of an ostrich feather. And the representation with that was understanding what are we bringing with us into the afterlife from the life that we've lived. Now you can think about that on a smaller scale. What are we bringing with us into the dark part of the year from all of the action that we've done in the light part of the year? So what types of results are we starting to understand that we're going to receive from what we've sown from during the spring and summer months? Okay, the balance part of this is fascinating, because the other thing that Libra initiates is an awareness of an other, right? So we are coming to an awareness of another point of view in our Libra experience. Now with the 2 of Swords, we may be coming into an experience of an imbalance in our life. Libra being a sign that is very much associated with creating balance in life has to have an awareness of an imbalance before it can restore harmony. So a lot of times if we have a planet in the first 10-degree section of Libra, we might be experiencing an imbalance, and we might feel some anger at that, right? Oftentimes we think of Libra as peacemakers, etc. But one thing that we don't always hear about is that there's some righteous anger that comes up when people have or have transits moving through the first 10-degree sections of Libra. And one of the symbols that represents that anger is the Uranies. Because we have a spirit or a daimon, the Uranies in Libra 1, the Uranies were these deities, these goddesses, were kind of monstrous in form that in ancient civilizations people would pray to if someone had gotten away with a crime. So that righteous indignation of the Uranies, that the Furies is another name for it. So we might be feeling this furious anger, and not necessarily always on our own behalf with Libra. Sometimes it's on the behalf of somebody else or some injustice that we see out in the world socially and collectively. So that's the beginning of this story, the recognition of injustice. And you move to the decan that the sun's in right now, Libra 2. You see the 3 of Swords. And this is a card that a lot of people always are a little bit afraid of sometimes because it looks kind of ominous, but it's a very Saturnian decan. It is one where we are trying to negotiate a new contract of fairness, where we're trying to take into account someone else's opinion, viewpoint, worldview, and balance it with our own. And we'll go into the nuance of what that might mean, but the book T calls this one the Lord of Sorrow. So sometimes when we get someone else's perspective, we don't necessarily agree with it. We might not get everything that we desire, but we have to make a compromise with somebody. This is the decan of compromise, but also of commitment. And then finally, when we see the tarot card associated with Libra 3, we move to the Four of Swords, which is called Rest from Strife, or the Lord of Rest from Strife and the Lord of Truce. When we finally make that agreement, that negotiation, then we have the peaceful feeling that we see potentially in this decanic card. Now, one of the secrets with this card is that it's not just a static state of peace that we can find ourselves in. A lot of the times when we are trying to maintain balance and equilibrium, it is a practice. And this decan reminds us that maintaining harmony and balance takes small adjustments over time, right? Like a gyroscope, Austin Coppock calls this decan. But I think of it as like, how do we keep these plates spinning, right? How do we spin this one a little bit? How do we slow this one down, speed this one up? How do we increase that which is lacking and decrease that which is excessive? Now that is really fascinating because there's a spirit in this decan called Nemesis. And Nemesis was a goddess that restored right proportion, increased that which is lacking, decreased that which is excessive, and gave us what is our due, whether it is positive or whether we've sown something negative. So there's consequences with this decan as well. It's interesting too, because in this decan we have the exaltation of Saturn, a planet that loves to distribute consequences for better or for worse. So you could see how it unfolds in a narrative, and that narrative, it can really help us, especially when we're going through it in real time. If you think back the last few weeks, you've probably witnessed in the collective or in your own life some kind of imbalance or injustice that might have aroused feelings of anger. Now that we have progressed into the second decan, we might be starting to make negotiations around that. We might be thinking about what commitments we want to make, what compromises we want to make, and which ones we absolutely will not make. And then finally, as we move forward in the weeks ahead, we will start to have to make those small adjustments in our life after everybody knows what is expected of one another. So if you know that in advance, that can help prepare you for the right moment for success. All right, let's see. So I'm going to keep going here. I'll check in with the chat in a second. Appreciate all of your comments, and thank you so much for being here today. So let's talk a little bit more about Libra 2. So Libra 2 has that Three of Swords card that we were mentioning. Of course, you can see in our decanic flashcards that the host of Libra is Venus, but the face ruler, the decanic ruler, is Saturn. So a Saturn-ruled face, a Saturn mask in a Venus-ruled sign. So think about that. The core essence of Libra is trying to achieve Venus's purpose of harmony, right? Well, in this point in the harmony journey, we have to get real about what our commitments are. We have to make oaths that are binding. This is a decan of binding agreements, right? Sometimes this card and this decan are associated with the vows of marriage. And sometimes those vows can be very positive. I've seen tarot readers and astrologers that when they see this card come up for a wedding reading, it's a really positive sign because it shows the commitment with one another, rather than when we assume that with the swords and the heart means that it's not going to be successful. I would say this decan can be very positive for committing to something that you intend to carry through for the long term. Now, it all depends on what planet is moving through the decan. Venus moving through this decan can be really positive. Saturn moving through this decan is exalted. But when we have Mars moving through this decan, it could be the breaking of an oath or a contract. In ancient Greek civilization and in other ancient civilizations, not everybody knew how to read. So your oath or your word was very important because there weren't always written contracts. So this decan talks about oaths and contracts, sometimes through verbal contracts and sometimes through written ones. It also shows us our duties and commitments. It shines a light on those. It talks about lasting agreements and obligations, which can feel like heavy burdens at times, the heavy burden of Saturn. It can help us to unify separate parties because remember, The essence of this sign is Venusian. It is harmonizing. It is balancing. There are themes that come up about keeping or breaking a promise, marriages, business partnerships, and not only vows to others, but the vows that we keep to ourselves too. Sometimes the most important oaths and agreements we have are the ones that we keep to stay true to our own integrity. So in each of these decanic slides that you will get with all of the webinars, you will see questions that are asked of you over time. Focus questions. So what is required of you in Libra 2? What are your obligations? Does this agreement work for you and the other party? What promises have you made to others and to yourselves? How can you negotiate a win-win situation rather than trying to dominate someone so that there is someone that may breed resentment for you into the future and then try to undermine your position? And then what are the consequences if you break this vow? This is understanding the consequences. There are natural consequences to breaking our agreements with others. Sometimes just the consequence is a loss of trust between one another. And that's very hard to restore sometimes when it is broken. So, things to think about with Libra 2. So I'm going to check in with the chat real quick because we've got some really nice comments coming in here. Javiera is saying, hold on a second. So Jody's here. What's up, Jody? Says happy Friday, listening while I drive home. Nice to see you, Jody. I hope you'll join us for Decan Walk 25-26. Always love working with you, friend. It's been too long since we've caught up. KWOW says, nice. I'm working through Nightlight Year 1 right now. Excellent. Excellent program. Adam does a fantastic job. Javier says, love Adam. I had an inclination you studied at Nightlight. I did. I went through his Year 1 and Year 2 and horary programs and just learned a lot from him and very grateful for his teaching. Susanna says, I've followed your channel since January of 2020. Susanna, you've been around for the long haul, and it's always wonderful to hear your voice here or to see your comments here and being able to connect with you through the Lord of the Rings. Susanna's part of our group that's been reading the Lord of the Rings together. It's just been a great journey. Javier says, I'm going to have to watch over this rich info. I hope I'm passing on a valuable legacy for you, Javier. It'd be great to see you at Decan Walk if you can make it. Javier says, I would definitely buy a Decan flashcard Oracle Tarot deck. I'll have to see if I can put this together. I've had a lot of people that have mentioned that it would be really cool to have a physical version of this. And I think there are ways to do that. So I'll be looking into that moving forward. Javier says, what chart type would a person use for this? What chart type would a person use for this? I'm not sure I completely understand the question, Javier. Is there a way you can phrase it slightly differently? I'll come back to that. Chad Wiseman is here. What's up, Chad? Says, I've got my moon in Libra 2 in the 9th house. I'm Saturn ruled too, Aquarius rising. I am an attorney, fittingly. There you go. You negotiate contracts. You talk about the law. You try to negotiate consequences. That's another thing. And contracts. When you're going through doing attorney stuff, you're writing up all sorts of contracts all the time. Sometimes if you're defending someone, what you're doing is you're trying to make an agreement with the judge as to what the contract is going to be for that person's life moving forward. So that is a perfect example, Chad, of utilizing that Libra 2 energy in an excellent way. Devin, what's up, Devin? Nice to see you. It says whole sign house, tropical chart with Chaldean decans. Oh, Javier says I meant Placidus versus whole sign. Devin has a great answer here. Yeah, I like to use whole sign houses with the tropical zodiac. When we are doing descending Chaldean order, I'll explain that in a second, but there are two rulers. You can see that there's two rulers in my decanic flashcard. The first one is the Chaldean ruler, which is the descending order of the planets. In descending Chaldean order, Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, the Sun, Venus, Mercury, and the Moon. And then it kind of cycles back around through the decans. The second planetary ruler is in the triplicity method that's more associated with Eastern astrology or Vedic astrology or Jyotisha. And I use that as sort of a way to kind of understand the decan through the balance and harmony between the two rulers. But I mostly use the Chaldean ruler like Devin is talking about here. And yeah, Placidus. I use Placidus for horary charts, actually Regimentanus, which is a quadrant-based system, but we use whole sign houses when I'm analyzing natal charts. Yeah. Okay. So moving forward, awesome questions. and good contribution comments here. Let's talk about the spirit of Libra 2, which is Horkos. So Austin Coppock in his excellent book, 36 Faces, which if you can get your hands on a copy, I highly recommend you do so. I know it's out of print. It's very hard to do so. In our class, we're going to be utilizing Susie Chang's 36 Secrets, which is another excellent book. She is a tarot expert and has written a really great book on the decans. It's an excellent book if you can't get your hands on 36 Faces. There might be a re-release of 36 Faces, a second edition coming, potentially during our Decan Walk, which would be amazing, because then we would have another book that we would have as a great reference for the class. But in his book, he does list the official spirit as Kairos, which is the sort of the little cherub that has a lock of hair on his forehead that represents the opportune moment. He said that Zeus himself couldn't catch Kairos from behind. But he offers another one named Horkos, which I think makes a lot more sense, especially when we talk about oaths and contracts. So Horkos, and this is from the beautiful compendium of ancient texts, theoi.com, theoi.com. It says Horkos was the personified spirit or daimon of oaths who punished perjurers. He was the punilite. I think that's punitive. Sorry, that was a weird one. It looks like a Y. He was the punitive companion of the goddess Dike or justice. And then we have sort of a phrase from Aesop's fables here. It says, a certain man took a deposit. This gives us a story to understand what Horkos might be doing. A certain man took a deposit from a friend, but intended to keep it for himself. When the depositor then summoned him to swear an oath regarding the deposit, he realized the danger he was in and prepared to leave the city and go to his farm. When he reached the city gates, he saw a lame man who was also on his way out of town. He asked the man who he was and where he was going. The man said that he was the god named Horkos, and that he was on his way to track down wicked people. The man then asked Horkos, aka Oath, how often he revisited each city. Horkos replied, I come back after 40 years, or sometimes 30. Accordingly, the very next day, the man did not hesitate to swear an oath that he had never received the deposit. But then the man ran into Horkos, who dragged him off the edge of a cliff. The man asked Horkos how he could have said that he wasn't coming back for another 30 years, when in fact he didn't even grant him a single day's reprieve. Horkos explained, you also need to know that if somebody intends to provoke me, I am accustomed to come back again the very same day. So basically, Aesop's fable is like, hey, don't break an agreement. If you're making an oath with the intention to break it, that can come back to bite you right away, right? Even if you think you might get away with something for a number of years. That's not the way the spirit of this decan works, which I think is pretty interesting. So in addition to having a spirit for each of the decans, we will talk about this during our Decan Walk. Each of the decans is housing different fixed stars that are overlaid over the course of time. So the two fixed stars that we have in Libra 2 is Vindamatrix and Algorand. Now, the interesting things about the fixed stars in this particular system of thinking is that they actually change decans over long periods of time because of a concept known as precession. Precession is the appearance of these constellations moving in relationship to the tropical zodiac because of the tilt of the earth and the wobble of the earth over time. So this currently, that's what's so cool about the decans. They change over time. They morph, right? Currently, this decan houses two important fixed stars in Libra, and this is in the constellation of Virgo, though. So one thing to know about the tropical zodiac is it doesn't match up exactly with the constellations that they were named for. This is something that organizations like NASA and like astronomers are quick to point out to try to discredit astrology, because some of these constellations don't match up exactly. But we've accounted for that in astrology by understanding that concept of precession. And the tropical zodiac itself begins at the I believe it begins at the vernal equinox, and that point shifts over time. So here we have Vindemiatrix in the constellation of Virgo, which this star is also called the Grape Gatherer, and that's because it's associated with the story of Ampelos, who was a Dionysian youth, right? A consort of Dionysus who climbed a great grapevine, climbed a little bit too high trying to gather these grapes and fell to his death. So there is some associations with this fixed star with losing a companion. Sometimes in horror, we see this as a star of divorce. It has been named the Widowmaker, so there's some challenging energy with this particular fixed star. It is also associated with overestimating our power, right? When we try to climb too high or gather too much, that we can fall from grace in that regard. The other thing that Bernadette Brady, another fixed star expert, talks about is Vindemiatrix, because of its association with the Grape Gatherer. This might be an important time for gathering information. If you have something on 10 or 11 degrees of Libra in your own chart, you may be great at gathering information to be able to weigh and balance what would be fair for two different parties. So an interesting little way to see another lens to look at the decan through. Now we have another fixed star here called Algorab. And Algorab is in a constellation Corvus, the Crow, which is a projected ecliptical degree. So this is a constellation that is very near the tropical sign of Libra, and we project it out from the ecliptic, and we come to this Algorab constellation and fixed star. It's in the constellation of Corvus, which is the Crow, and this was a crow that is also very near two other constellations called Hydra, the sea serpent, and Crater, the sacred cup of Apollo. So Corvus, the story goes, was tasked with filling the sacred cup of Apollo. And this was very important to the god Apollo. And Corvus, he's like, okay, I'll do this. He made an oath. He made an oath and an agreement to do so. He gave Apollo his word. But Algorab got distracted by some figs, right? Or some earthly delights, or maybe some kind of shiny object, which crows are apt to get distracted by. And he failed to fill the task of filling the cup of Apollo. So he broke his oath, he broke his word. And not only did he break his word, but he blamed Hydra, the sea serpent, the snake, for his misgiving, right? So we have to be very careful when we have placements going over this fixed star of getting distracted from our most important tasks, from our oaths and agreements that we've made. We have to stay focused on our goals, and we have to resist the urge to lie, to cover up a weakness, to cover up our indiscretion. So there is a really, in our Lord of the Rings book club, we had a really powerful example of Algorab. We have been breaking down the charts of the characters that played certain important figures in the story, compared it to a way of seeing someone's birthday through the timing period of Middle Earth. So we have a chart that's in Middle Earth time, and then we have a chart of the actor who betrayed them. And oftentimes actors will be vehicles for mythological stories. And in this case, Pippin, the hobbit that was constantly kind of getting them in trouble through his curiosity, but also through his lack of focus, and his attraction to shiny objects. He has the actor that played Pippin, Billy Boyd, has Algorab at 13 degrees of Libra right on his ascending degree. So, there if you've seen the movies, you see that Pippin was very fascinated by the Palantir, the stone of seeing. And it's this big shiny stone, and he can't resist it. He has to have this shiny object. And it put the mission in jeopardy. I mean, it ended up being sort of a blessing in disguise that he touched the stone and sort of threw Sauron off of the path. But it could have led to disaster. He also, in the movie, created a huge ruckus and distraction when they're moving through the mines of Moria that attracted negative attention. So I just thought that was such a perfect example when we were looking at the chart and seeing in real time someone playing out the challenges of Algorand, the challenges of being distracted by something shiny, and the havoc and chaos that can wrought. A perfect example. And we could see that if you're coming into class and you have a placement on here, we can learn from those examples. And especially when that planet is activated, we can learn that, hey, maybe this is an important time for focus. Maybe this is an important time to really eliminate distractions in your life. Susanna says, the charts of the actors have been speaking really loudly. It's amazing. Yeah, it's been a really incredible journey that we've gone through with the Lord of the Rings. We've done the Hobbit. We've done we started off with the Fellowship of the Ring. We've completed the Two Towers, and we just began the Return of the King. And hopefully we'll be looking at the Silmarillion, which is Tolkien's sort of mythological basis for the rest of those books. Yeah, it's been a really fun journey. Okay, so here are some books that you can look at if you're interested in the decans. And these are ones from my personal library, but these are reference material. So we've got Porphyry, the philosopher, mentions these decans. Rhetorius, the Egyptian. There's all sorts of ancient authors that recommend them. The Hermetica is a great source to start understanding decanic wisdom. Of course, we've got 36 Secrets by T. Susie Chang, which will be our official book for class. 36 Faces by Austin Coppock, which is an incredibly detailed book about the decans and the faces that takes each planet through the decans. Unfortunately, it is out of print, but it should be re-released hopefully during the course of our Decan Walk in the upcoming year. Mythesis by Firmicus Maternus mentions the decans. The 3 Books of Occult Wisdom by Cornelius Agrippa mentions them with magical uses as well. We have the illustrated Picatrix that talks about those things. You saw a little quote from the Picatrix on each one of my decanic slides. Abu Mashar here, translated by Ben Dykes, references them. Robert M. Place is a great author to learn more about the tarot, also mentions the decans. Holistic Tarot by Benabel Wen is a great reference. And then the one on the bottom here, the Book of Thoth by Aleister Crowley, gives us some different names that we would get outside of the Golden Dawn books. And this is just a selection of books that we can understand the decans through, but I think it's nice to be able to see it all that. Kate says, who's doing the Decan Walk this year? Well, hopefully, I think Kate's joining us, so hopefully we'll get some more people on board, but yeah, it would be great to see people hopping on board with us. It really is an amazing journey. This will be my 3rd year doing Decan Walk, and I am super excited. We have a great group. We have some returning people that are amazing and have gone through growth over multiple years. Like being able to connect with clients over multiple years is such a gift. Oftentimes as astrologers, sometimes we will meet a client once and then we'll never see them again. But the Decan Walk allows us to have this intimacy and see the ups and the downs of a life. And we're able to track an individual Time Lord from year to year. The beautiful thing about astrology is that it's always different. So even if you've taken Decan Walk one year, it's going to be completely different the next year because the stories, the experiences that you're going through are going to be completely different than what you experienced the year before, with the caveat that there will be repeated cycles that you can learn from as well. How did you deal with this when the sun was moving over this placement in your chart? And how are you dealing with it now? So what's included in this Decan Walk? What is this all about? Well, we have 2 live monthly webinar sessions. They're going to be the 1st and 3rd Monday of every month at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. They are recorded, so if you can't make all of the sessions live, there are recordings that will be available to you. Those recordings are private, so if we talk about some intimate things in class, and that trust that we build between one another is very sacred to me, so we make that very explicit and clear in class. But again, you don't necessarily have to come to every session if you can't make it. We've got a private members-only Discord group where we're sharing our decanic reflections. We're sharing charts. I post class replays. I post all of the Decan material, the workbooks, the Decan flashcards, the webinars, etc. You're going to be getting access to workbooks where you can, they're pre-made sheets where they've got all the same information that I have in my Decan webinars, but with focus questions and places for you to print this sheet out and to write out your Decan reflections in real time. There's all sorts of focus questions. There's ways to say, okay, I have this Decan. Do I have a planet moving through this? It gives dates for when the planets are going to be moving through all of that. An update this year is not only are we going to have workbooks for when the sun is moving through a particular Decan, but I'm going to make sheets for your specific Time Lord. So if you're in a mercurial perfection year, this annual perfections is a ancient timing technique where one planet is turned on as the ruler of a certain house each year of your life. For example, I'm in a Venus ruled perfection right now, so I'm paying specific focus and attention to the second Decan of Virgo because Venus is moving through the second Decan of Virgo. I'm having experiences about trying to infuse spirit and energy into a form, like by doing Decan Walk. You will also have access to over 30 hours of pre-recorded decanic webinars. So the way that class usually will go is that I will give you the webinar of the moment. You watch the webinar on your own time, which no pressure to do so. There is an enormous amount of material and information in that. But we have people that sometimes don't have time to always do it right before class. And people still benefit because we are learning in real time. We're gaining fluency. And I'm someone who likes to explain things in great detail and make sure that everybody understands the technique as well. So the 30 hours of pre-recorded webinars are an archive for you to have to be able to reference the decans, to learn about your placements, and then bring that information to class and have us discuss it within the language of our lived experience and our stories. You'll get PDFs of all the webinar slides as well. It's a nice package here. Let's see. Kate says, I hope to meet some of my cosmic fam. I know, me too. I hope that there will be more people to jump on with us, right? So here are some of the details. And we're almost to the end of this spiel, and then we can do some charts. So class begins Monday, October the 6th. That is this Monday as I'm recording it. So this is the last weekend to sign up. So if you've been on the fence and you're like, I don't know, like, ask any questions that you may have today. But this is go forward o'clock. If you are on board, this is your time. We meet every first and third Monday at 2 p.m. Eastern for the next 12 months. Classes go about 90 minutes. Sometimes they go a little bit longer if we're dealing with sometimes we'll have something that comes up that is a little bit challenging that we don't want to just kind of touch a nerve and then send someone on their way. We want to have a safe container for them and be able to have that good turnaround. So sometimes class will go a little bit longer. And if we're just having a good time talking, we go a little bit longer. We usually have a break in the middle so you can get up and use the restroom or get a snack or a glass of water or stretch. And you can stay as long or as little time that you want. If class is going long and you got to take off, that's totally fine. The tuition for the year is $1,800. You can split that into monthly payments. You can split it into quarterly payments. If you pay in full, you get an extra $100 coupon off of any reading that I offer that you'll get instantly. Payment plans are available. If you're struggling financially and that sounds like a lot to commit to, just reach out to me. Let me know a little bit about your situation. And if this truly resonates with you, I have worked with people for sliding scales and to be able to get you on board. So please don't let the cost be a barrier if you really want to commit to this and you really want to learn. I'd be happy to work with you. If you have any of my Decan webinars, let me know, and I will take the price of those off of the price of the class. So we have an alumni rate for people who are returning. So if you have some of those webinars already and you enjoy them, I'll take that price off of the price of the class. So you can find me over at spencermichaud.com. You can sign up at the Book Now button over there. Find me on social media at Spencer Michaud on Instagram, Blue Sky, Twitter, etc. You can subscribe over here if you haven't already to the YouTube channel and on Facebook. And then if you have any questions, if you want to set up a payment plan, whatever it is, go over to spencermichaudastrology@gmail.com. And please don't be shy about reaching out or embarrassed if you need any help with it. I am somebody who really wants this to work for people. And I'm just excited to connect with you on a much deeper level. All right. So that is your Decan Walk preview. Let's see here. So we could talk a little bit about our charts today. So let's go back here. If you have any questions, let me know. I did pull an I Ching and an animal for the Decan Walk. So we could talk about that first. And then if anyone would like to uh, have any questions about Decan Walk or would like me to analyze your chart via the language of the Decans, I'd be happy to do so for a period of time. But the hexagram that I got for Decan Walk is number 14, great possession. I asked this yesterday afternoon. What's the essence of Decan Walk 2526? And I got a really positive hexagram. This was a really nice reading. Great possession talks about possession in great great measure, personal sovereignty, empowerment, right? I'm going to read you a little excerpt from Jack Balkin. He says, this hexagram represents a time of exceptional achievement and good fortune. Vast possibilities are now available to you. Opportunities abound. Whatever you now undertake has the greatest chance of success. Your relationships with others will blossom and thrive. Your resources will multiply. Because you have so much going your way, you are effectively in command of the situation. Therefore, the time of great possession is also a time of sovereignty and control over your life. You are now able to take charge of the situation and move your life in a direction in which it should go. Nevertheless, the lesson of this hexagram is that when you are in such a commanding position, you must remain modest and unassuming. Then your success will not arouse envy or resentment, and your good fortune will not alarm or threaten others. Hence, people will be willing to gather around you and cooperate with you. Put another way, in the time of great possession, one needs great self-possession. If you are magnanimous, generous, and humble, you can make great progress, gather increased support, and draw even more resources to your side. This is the meaning of the weak line in the fifth place that is able to attract the other yang lines and lead them. Through unselfishness, receptivity, and generosity, you attract valuable people to your cause. By expressing your influence and your authority in subtle, controlled, and graceful ways, you help ensure continued success and prosperity, not only for yourself, but for those who ally yourself with you. A time of great possession should also be a time of great clarity and enlightenment. When you have so much going for you, it is important to remain true to your principles. Use this time to pursue something truly worthy. You now have a chance to change your life for the better, so make sure to use the opportunity to move in the right direction. If you cannot live your life according to your highest aspirations and values when things are going well, then when else will you be able to do so? Finally, a time of great possession should be a time of great generosity. People are given so much that they can share with others. Remember that those who have helped you in the past and support other people along the way. By acting with magnanimity and kindness now, you lay the groundwork for so many great deeds in the future. I love this reading. And it really is a great representation of what has been my experience of Decan Walk thus far. I am just a guide. I am trying to help you on the journey to understand your own journey, to understand your life, to understand how to connect with symbolisms or symbols that will ultimately lead to more peace of mind, lead to better outcomes in your life, better relationships, better ways to understand yourself, and ultimately to be kind and to love yourself and others. The type of environment that we create in Decan Walk is one of unconditional love and support for one another. I mean, that is really at the core of what we're doing. And it's just so magical to see other people start supporting each other through their empathy, through their kindness, through their encouragement. Those are the values at the core of this class. Yes, we are learning the language of astrology. Yes, we are learning through the decans, through mythology, through fixed stars, through tarot cards, etc. But it has to mean something. There has to be meaning behind it. And a lot of education is detached from that kind of heart-centered support. And this is the opposite of that. This is being able to infuse heart, emotion, kindness, and support for one another into the education. And that's something that I just feel so blessed to be able to facilitate and to guide you through. So if that type of experience resonates with you, this is the type of class for you. This is the type of class where we build community. We learn with a very high standard, but there's not pressure to learn the material in a standard way. Sometimes the greatest realizations that we can have is when you are experiencing something like a success or even a great failure in your life or a great challenge in your life. We can just learn through connecting that with the decan, with the planet, with the time period where it's going to begin and when it's going to end, so that you can alleviate some of that suffering. Sometimes that's the greatest way to learn a skill, is through seeing it through the eyes of your own life, and then through, of course, the eyes of lives of others as well. I have an animal for you too. And this is another perfect one that came up. I'm just so astounded at the synchronicity. It's the raccoon. Look at this beautiful little raccoon. It's such a vibe. I'm going to read you an excerpt from one of my first animal symbolism books. It's called Medicine Cards. This is a book that accompanies a deck by Jamie Sams and David Carson. And this is in relationship to the raccoon, the generous protector. We want to create a safe space, right? He starts with a little poem. Raccoon, protector of the underdog, provider for those who have none. Do you wear the bandit's mask to hide the good deeds that you've done? Teach me to turn away from rich rewards or worldly acclaim, knowing that my generosity allows my warrior spirit to be reclaimed. Raccoon carries the medicine of the protector of the underdog and the provider for the young, infirm, and elderly. Often called Little Bandit by Southern tribes, this Robin Hood of the animal kingdom teaches us about generosity and caring for others. When raccoon comes your way, you are being asked to contact your inner warrior and to become a protector and generous provider for those in need. Raccoon medicine people have the uncanny ability to assist others without allowing them to become victims or dependents. Like the tribal chiefs of old, raccoon tends to the needs of the tribe before taking anything for itself. A troop of raccoons scouting for food is often a hilarious exercise in generosity. After rolling in the cornmeal or flour, they finally settle on their favorite morsels, giving the best tidbits to their lookout. Raccoons leave a watcher behind when raiding a campsite or mountain cabin, usually the dominant male. He is always fed first by the other raiders to honor his vigilance as the group's protector. This uncommon lack of greed is rare in the world of humans, as it is in the rest of the animal world. While other creatures fight one another for the best of a kill, raccoon teaches us the universal law of giving back to the source of your strength, guidance, and protection. You are also reminded that benevolence and generosity come full circle to reward the giver. If raccoon wandered into your cards today, the little bandit may be telling you to look around and see who needs your strength at this time. Speak up in defense of another instead of remaining silent when others are gossiping. Maybe it is time to share the bounty of your time, energy, or possessions with the less fortunate. But remember to help those in need to develop their own protector and provider skills. In all cases, raccoon asks that you honor yourself and others equally. Provide for your own needs, or your well will be dry when you choose to give generously. Chiefs earn their eagle feathers when they promote every human's right to self-dignity. Acting in this manner brings the same honor to yourself and to your family. I love it. I almost get choked up talking about it, because the essence of what we're doing in Decan Walk is we are trying to protect one another. We are trying to help and guide one another. We are doing it in a way that I hope is empowering. That's what I loved about this reading. Is one of the things I very much reject is when we become dependent upon a teacher or a leader or a guru or anything of that nature, because then that makes an uneven power dynamic. In Decan Walk, what we're doing is, even if we're going through struggling times, we still treat each other with dignity, with empowerment, with trying to empower whoever's going through the challenge to work through that through the language of astrology, through the language of the tarot. It's just a really, I think, amazing way to go through life and an amazing way to connect with people. And every single person that has gone through the Decan Walk has had something extremely valuable to offer and an extremely valuable perspective to offer. We have a diverse group. We have a diverse group of ages. We have a diverse group of people from around the world. And being able to see things through other people's eyes and perspectives that can turn on the light bulb in our own lives. And even if you feel like you don't have a lot to offer, or if your life is going sideways, sometimes through sharing your vulnerability and sharing just the journey that you're going through can be so valuable to others, and witnessing that and connecting it with the astrology on the screen in real time. But also it gives everyone an opportunity to be that generous protector within the group. You know, it gives everybody the opportunity to be able to feel the inspiration that comes when we give to one another. That's sometimes the thing that feels the best, when we're able to help someone that's going through a difficult time. Man, that fills our own cup and fills our own spirit up. And that really is the essence of the raccoon, being able to give to others first before we take. And that is the essence that is coming through all of Decan Walk, and hopefully all of the groups that I'm working with. All right. So animal, I Ching, Decan Walk. It's going to start Monday, October the 6th. There's a link to sign up if you're ready. My email, spencermichaud@gmail.com. If you have any questions, you want to set up a payment plan, happy to work with you. KWOW is here and says, my natal chart is November 12th, 1990 at 2046 in Raleigh, North Carolina. Can you check out my natal Mars placement, please? I'm curious about the ruler of my sun and Venus placements. I'd be happy to do that. So, KWOW, let's bring their chart up. Okay, wow, what should would you be willing to share your first name so I can call you by your name? It's okay if not. I just want to know how to address you. I'm gonna put my chart up here. Let's see. Right now I'll put Kristen. All right, Kristen. All right, Kristen, I'm gonna put this in here. I've got November 12th. So this is what we would do in class. We would talk a little bit about the astrology of the moment. We would reflect on what we've gone through together as a group. We would analyze the chart of the moment, and then we would bring someone's chart up on the screen like we're doing with Kristen, and we would start to break it down, right? Let's see. So this is, let's see, Raleigh, North Carolina. Thank you for your patience. I think I have to change the E and the I around. I before E, except in Raleigh. Sorry, corny jokes. Okay, Kristen, I'm going to bring your screen or your chart up to the screen. There we go. And Kristen is curious about their sun and their natal Mars placement, and curious as it being the ruler of Sun and Venus. So I'm going to take your comment down here, Kristen, just for a second so we can see the chart. Okay. And what we're looking at here, I'm just going to kind of get the vibe here. I'm going to start seeing what we're looking at here. Here, I'll put this on the screen here. There's our Decan Walk. Okay. Oh, I got December. I need to change it. Sorry. It's good. See there, we want to make sure we get the right information. So 11/12/90. Is that right? Okay. Let me just double check. This is why you double check all of your data, right? Okay. And we'll bring up Javier's chart next. So thank you for your patience, Javier. Let's see. So this is Kristen's chart, Kate. And what we're looking at is Kristen. Interesting, Kristen. You and I have a chart connection because your ascendant is at 15 degrees Cancer, right on. My sun is right on top of the natal ascendant, so that's fun. So you were asking about Mars. And in the chart, we have Mars at 10 degrees retrograde in Gemini, and it is providing resources for her Scorpio stellium with the Sun and Venus in the 5th house from the 12th, and also providing for her 10th house, okay, of Aries. Mars is the ruler of both Aries and Scorpio in traditional astrology. Now, one of the things that we have that is interesting in your chart, Kristen, is that you have Mars in its own face, in its own decan. Mars is actually the decanic ruler of Gemini 2, the second 10-degree section of Gemini. And I'm going to pull out the card here associated with this. I also have Venus in Gemini 2, so it's an interesting placement. Okay, so we have here we have the Nine of Swords associated with Gemini 2. Now this decan is really about trying to reconcile two different options and the difficulty of doing so. I believe that the decanic authors call it the Lord of Despair and Cruelty. It can sometimes speak towards having really harsh speech. So one of the things that you might find as an undermining influence in your life through secret enemies could be people that maybe speak to you very harshly, or if you're losing control of your center and equilibrium, like maybe you have had some lack of some lapses of integrity with the way that you communicate with others. With Mars retrograde there, I think it can lead to some insomnia. That's another thing I've seen. Sometimes the decanic images are actually very, very literal. Here you see someone who is awake at night, and you can see on the bed frame there that somebody has killed someone else. It's like an image of a jousting match, or like a fencing killing or something of that nature. So someone's probably remembering something very traumatic and trying to reconcile that. So some insomnia challenges with this decan, especially with Mars here retrograde. Some challenges with moving forward in your life sometimes because of indecision. I think that this is a decan where you might find yourself in some no-win situations. You may find yourself projecting sometimes shadow energy that needs to be integrated into your life, into your own sense of wholeness and completion onto an external force. This is something that Gemini is known for quite often, is the projection of either, and this goes both ways, the projection of good qualities and the projection of negative qualities. Sometimes what is difficult for a Gemini person is accepting that they can be the good twin. Sometimes they will project the good person onto someone else and then beat themselves to death internally. So that's something to be aware of. Another way that this can manifest is projecting that the negative parts of ourselves onto an external force and an external other, and then constantly having to come across that dragon in our lives through an external conflict. So this could be an external conflict that is making it very difficult for fifth house matters, which fifth house is traditionally associated with children, associated with legacies that we want to pass on after our death. I know the eighth house is also associated with legacies, but the fifth house is as well. With creativity, with romance, there could be some real challenges with Mars in the 12th house, with an undermining influence that comes either through your own creative process, through children if you have them. It could be through, I've seen like, I guess there have been traumatic events associated with SA and with the ruler of the fifth house in a really challenging position, like I've seen here. And one of the things that is happening as it's providing for your sun and your Venus is a real difficulty. The third decan of Scorpio, if we try to combine these images here, third decan of Scorpio is related to the Seven of Cups card. And the Seven of Cups is a card that shows us, I'll find it in my deck here. Seven of Cups is associated with illusion. But it goes deeper than that. Scorpio is a sign that is attempting to return a form that is no longer vital back to the earth. The action of Mars is to sever and to separate. And in this case, it's severing the body and the spirit so that the spirit can be liberated. But in this third 10-degree section of Scorpio, where your sun and Venus are, this is actually a Venus-ruled decan. So you have a really fascinating chart, Kristen. You have an extremely decanic chart. Let me say that. You have Mars in its own decan in Gemini. You have Venus in its own decan in Scorpio. You have Mercury in its own decan in Sagittarius. Even though it's in exile, it has decanic rulership. And I believe you have Venus in its own decan. I'm sorry, the moon in its own decan. Oh, wow, I think this is the most decanic chart I've ever seen, Kristen. So let me circle all these decan. Let me circle all these planets in their own decan. So okay, Venus right here. Let's get rid of that. Hold on. So Venus is in its own decan. Mercury is in its own decan. The moon is in its own decan. Jupiter is the decanic ruler of the second decan of Leo. Mars is the decanic ruler of the second decan of Gemini. I think Saturn and the Sun are the only planets, traditional planets in your chart, that don't have decanic energy and rulership. Now, to me, what that says, Kristen, about your chart is, you remember earlier in the presentation, we talked about Guido Bonatti talking about a person being in a foreign place without necessarily any support, but making their way through their own gifts and talents and skills. And I'm going to guess, Kristen, that maybe you haven't had the most support in your life, right? Maybe you've had to make your own way, but through your own talents, your own gifts, your own journeys, through sometimes having to pull yourselves up by your proverbial bootstraps, you've been able to make a life for yourself. And I think it's really fascinating. I hope you join Decan Walk, because I would like to hear more about your story. But going back to the original question, here we have Mars providing resources for the Sun and for Venus. And we were talking about the Seven of Cups before I got algorithmed and distracted by all those different decanic placements. And what Venus does is it glamorizes the past form that has already been released from its vitality, that isn't providing any vitality anymore in our lives. And the more that we try to keep an old narrative, form, relationship, identity alive that has passed its prime, the more we have the possibility of doing debauchery. That's the name of this decan, debauchery. And debauchery is sort of like having to do, more and more evil things to prop up the illusion that we're trying to keep alive, to keep up the old form that we're trying to hang on to so tightly, even though everything in our life says it's time to let that go. And you are keeping yourself in this nightmare condition by hanging on too tightly to some of the things in your life. Now, I have also seen with this decan in particular, people who have gone through a death and rebirth in association with addiction. So this is one of the decans that the first question that I will ask of a client is, have you struggled with addiction in the past? The good news is that when much of the time they say yes, the good news is that this is one of the decans that I see a lot of success with, being able for people to say, you know what, this isn't for me anymore. The death and rebirth aspect of Scorpio is extremely powerful in this decan. So people who have struggled with addiction here have often recreated themselves and their lives in an almost unrecognizable fashion. And I think that that's something that I'm seeing here, is that you have the ability to go through multiple deaths and rebirths, but especially either through your children or through any creative children you might have, like an art form that you may do. And it may be a way to help you process some of that potential trauma that you are experiencing through people that have undermined your power. So, Kristen, tell me if any of this is landing for you, friend, and if there's anything that you want to share about your journey that can help us to bring context to this too, because really the best Decan Walk is at its best, not necessarily when I'm just talking the whole time, but when we're sharing the story and being able to connect the lived story with the chart itself. Decan Walk isn't necessarily about cold reading a chart, although we do a little bit of that. It's about how do we recognize the story within the symbolism. So, like, for example, in Kristen's chart right now, we're seeing here is the astrology of the moment on the outside. So we have, let's see, Kristen, 1990. How old are you, Kristen? Let me do some quick math in my head. You're 34. So 34 would be, your Time Lord would be, so this is 36, 35, 34. If I'm doing that right, yeah, would be an 11th house perfection year. So Venus is your Time Lord, right? So right now, Kristen, you might be experiencing Venus conjoining the South Node. It's conjoining the South Node over this weekend in your 3rd house. It's in its fall, but it has decanic dignity. I have a neighbor right now who is a Cancer rising like you. And one of the things that he's going through with Venus conjoining the South Node is he is selling a truck. He has a classic vehicle that he has had a lot of sentimental attachment to. And one of the things that he's going through in his life is he's trying to refinance his house, right? And he needed to get some capital to execute the loan. And that was the one possession that he had that was able to help facilitate that. And this weekend, while Venus is conjoining the South Node, he has a buyer for this truck, and it will be somewhat emotional. I don't know if he's getting exactly what he desired for the truck, but it's going to help facilitate him having a deeper success in his life, which is being able to stay in the home that he loves. So there may be something that you are going through as well, where it could be something related to a sibling, could be related to a local environment, it could be related to your daily habits and routines, where over this weekend and leading up to it, you may be needing to release something in your life, but for a higher purpose, to be able to facilitate something that is going to help you in your life to manifest something that you want to manifest in your life. So hopefully that's going well for you. Having Jupiter in your 1st house is generally can be beneficial, although you've just gone through a Jupiter-Saturn opposition with maybe some questions of what to do with either scarcity or lack with Jupiter in Cancer 3, which Jupiter in Cancer 3 is a great placement for being able to understand how to benefit and expand in our life without having it be at someone else's expense. Now, with the opposition with Saturn in Capricorn 3, this may be there may be some blockages with that. There may be some feelings that, man, I've got to really work with another partner and come to terms with the reality of our situation so that we can move forward with this expansion, etc. And you're going to have a powerful full moon coming up in your 10th house that's going to help you to balance out any challenges that you're having between your domestic life, which is represented by the 4th house, and your professional life, which is often represented by the 10th house. So that's what I've got for you. Hopefully that was helpful. There may also be, like with going back to Mars just briefly, Mars also might be creating some difficult choices within your public life as well, right? Because it rules your 10th house of your public self. Kristen says, I'll share my most recent event because my life has sent lots of different waves to ride. I quit smoking cigarettes back in May, and I've smoked since I was 16. Congratulations, KWOW. Kristen, that's awesome. And it really fits, I think, with the language of Venus in the 3rd 10-degree section of Scorpio, right? Since Venus is your Time Lord, it's not only is it activated in your chart, like by transit, but the natal planet is activated as well. So instead of glamorizing cigarettes, like cigarettes are the ultimate 7 of Cups vice, I think, because back in the day, probably, it still happens. We see smoking glamorized through movies, through advertisements. It's like it's the cool thing to do if you need a break and you're overwhelmed, and people smoked to look cool, right? But it hides a darker side of that, which it makes you feel bad. It creates cancer. It's expensive. The glamour is hiding the debauchery, the difficulty behind it. So being able to say, hey, I'm going to release myself, like with Venus conjoining the South Node. I'm going to release this habit. Third house often is indicative of our habits that we do every day, right? Maybe this is the moment where you're like, yeah, I'm really done with this for sure. I know you quit smoking back in May, but maybe this is the moment where you're saying, hey, I'm really committed to this. I don't really want to do this anymore. I'm not going to glamorize this anymore. I'm going to release it, right? And that can lead to a rebirth in your life that can be so powerful. Scorpio is not just the release of physical forms. There is a lot of literature about the release of desires that we have that aren't serving us anymore. And when we go through Decan Walk, you will see the narrative of identifying a desire that is difficult to get met, a hunger that is difficult. The first decan of Scorpio is called a jawbone in 36 Faces, where we have a hunger that is insatiable, right? And then we glamorize that in the third decan. In the second decan, we revisit it briefly. Like maybe let's talk about Scorpio in the language of the decans and your journey. The first part of your journey in May was probably identifying that there was an addiction that you didn't want to do anymore. You're like, this isn't healthy. I want to get rid of it. There's grief associated with that. The first decan of Scorpio has grief associated with it. We need to ritualize that mourning. Now, Kristen, the second phase of letting go sometimes is a nostalgic revisiting of it. Maybe in cycles of getting sober and in cycles of letting go of bad habits, oftentimes we regress. We cheat, or we have a cigarette, we have a drink, whatever it is. We have the snack, the cookies, or whatever it is that we're trying to move aside. And we need to revisit it, sometimes to squeeze the essence out of it, to say, I've learned what I need to learn. Sometimes when we go back to an old bad habit, we do it so that we truly understand how bad it's making us feel, right? I sometimes have had a challenge with sugar. Like my body doesn't process sugar very well at all. So when sometimes there's like cake that comes into my house for various reasons, sometimes not through my own channel, right? Thanks, Tanya. But I'll eat some cake, and if it has a lot of sugar in it, like my arm will literally start getting numb and start hurting. And it'll remind me that, hey, you know what? That doesn't actually make me feel good. And that's part of the second decan Scorpio revisiting, sometimes so that we can get more firm about letting it go. And then finally, the third decan, we're really returning that back to the earth. And if we're really ready to let go, it's a great process of release and liberation. Because the fascinating part is the transition between Scorpio 3 and Sagittarius 1 is one of liberation. The card associated with Scorpio 1 is speed, swiftness, movement, where that liberated potential is looking for a new host, a new body, a new guiding light. So I think that one of the things that is going to happen, KWOW, when you are feeling this release is that energy. You're going to have energy that returns to you, because the habit that was sucking the life force out of you is going to not be there anymore. That vacuum isn't there anymore. And when that isn't there anymore, you have so much energy for other things. And man, I'm excited for you. And yeah, Kate is saying congrats to you, Kristen. I am so excited to see how that's going for you, and stay strong, friend. It's really gonna, I think, lead to some really positive outcomes for you. Kate says, I'm an ex-smoker. I smoked for 18 years and quit in 2015. One of the greatest accomplishments of my life. My first cigarette in third grade, kicked out of DARE in fifth grade for smoking. Kate says, you got this. Now, Kate's demonstrating another part of Decan Walk that I really love. Being able to share our own stories with empathy, so that we can see that when we share something vulnerable, that we're not alone, right? This is one of the benefits of coming to a group like this, is that when we're going through something difficult, something really challenging, like quitting smoking or quitting an addiction, we can see that other people have gone through this, that it's not just this individual battle we're fighting. We've got cheerleaders. We've got people that have gone through it and may have some ideas about it, or just have some moral and emotional support for us. So I love that, Kate. That's exactly the type of thing that we do in Decan Walk, and you're going to be a great fit for the group, my friend. Let's see. Devin says, the godfather of advertising hired women to smoke to join cigarettes to the suffragette movement. Yeah, so So diabolical. Yeah. Advertising has tried to sell us all sorts of things that are terrible for us and glamorize them. I think the advertising industry in general is pretty a good representation of the Seven of Cups card for sure. Kristen says, "Hell yeah, Kate, you're a decade down. That's fabulous. I look forward to that day." See, this is the type of interaction that we would have within class, is mutual support of one another, cheering each other's on towards victory, and supporting each other through the hard times in life. Steven says, "I'm a social smoker. I quit because it almost killed me. Bronchitis and other issues when I was in my 30s. Congratulations, Kristen." Absolutely. Yeah. Kate says, "We're not just other people. We're an astrological family tied by sacred knowledge." Exactly. Because we can speak this similar language with one another. We can learn from these mythological stories that inhabit these symbols. So the other beauty of studying astrology like this is when we, like for Kristen, understanding that there are fated elements in her life that may bring her face to face with an addictive thing that she will potentially need to release within her life, shows her that this is not just some character weakness. This was part of her spiritual journey to come face to face with that particular type of dragon. We all have dragons that we face, challenges that we face. And that was the particular flavor of challenge that was destined for Kristen to fight and to win against, right? And to be able to be reborn from. And to me, that is so powerful to see that baked into our charts. So through her own efforts, like this is going to be something where Kristen's going to have, Kristen, you're probably going to have to do a lot of things with your own efforts. Like smoking is one of those things where if you want to quit smoking, there's no one that's going to make you do it. And there's no one that's going to be in control of that choice other than you, right? So through your own efforts, you're going to be able to continue to move towards health. And that's sort of a decanic journey too, like success through your own efforts. All right. Javier says, "I'm still killing myself with cigarettes." Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, I mean, we all have our journeys and we all are coming to whatever realizations that we need to come to at different times. And we all have vices. Like this is the thing. If anyone tells you that they don't have any vices, they're probably lying to you. And sometimes we just have to have compassion for ourselves through those journeys. And when we come to those realizations, we have to come to it as individuals. No one is going to make us do that. So you may have that as a vice, but you may have some other virtues that help to balance out the spectrum potentially. Okay, I'm going back in the chart here. Were there other chart questions? Let me see. Javiera was saying that they wanted me to look at something. So Javiera, let's see. Let me look for your chart here. I might have your chart, Javiera. Let's see. I feel like you might have given me your information at one point. Oh, let's see. I will see if I've got this here. One moment. Oh, there we are. All right, so there's Javier's chart. 8-degree Capricorn rising. Javier, did you have a question about a specific placement or a specific issue that you might be going through or something that you've been trying to work out within your natal chart? I see we've got another Gemini 2 native with the sun in Gemini 2 and Jupiter there in its exile. We've got Saturn retrograde conjoining Neptune in the first house from Capricorn 2. We've got a fallen Mars in Cancer in the 7th house. Mercury in the 3rd decan of Taurus. Moon in Virgo 1, which is interesting. Okay, so Javier is talking about maybe self-worth issues. Well, let's try to break this down here. So when we start with, all right, so one thing that we can look at, I like to start looking at a chart from the ascendant sort of outwards. So one thing that I like to do is say, well, how do we identify? And oftentimes we think that we start identifying through the sun. And that may be true on some level or for some people, but I think that there is almost a deeper identification with the ascendant and the planet that rules the ascendant. So the first decan of Capricorn, the ascending degree, and Javier says, I think that's why I'm having trouble getting out there and trying new things and asking for help. Interesting. So we'll take a look at that here. So the first decan of Capricorn is associated with the Two of Pentacles, Javier. So a lot of the experience of Two of Pentacles, a Jupiter-ruled decan, where Jupiter is actually fallen in Capricorn. So if you think about Jupiter and Capricorn, we're trying to create life and expansion in a condition that is more associated with the time of year in the Northern Hemisphere where death is on the face of the earth, where limitations and restrictions are on the face of the earth. So a lot of people that have prominent Capricorn 1 placements are often trying to juggle and understand the laws of the land, the genus loci of a place. So understanding where they want to incarnate into, how that might be beneficial one way or the other. But there can be some challenges with trying to juggle those different rules and expectations. Now, what we know about Javier from her sharing throughout the chat over many weeks is that she's a native of Nicaragua, but is living in Canada, in Ontario, right? So a lot of the identification might come from feeling like an exile, but trying to understand what the new laws of this new land are. And you have a retrograde Saturn conjoining Neptune in the first house as the helm of the chart. Oftentimes with Saturn in the first house, there is a heaviness to life. There is like a feeling of having a great burden or a weight on our shoulders. I've seen a lot of first house Saturn people that are like, I'm just carrying this burden through life. In this case, Saturn in the second decan of Capricorn is helping us to understand that we can build ornate structures of our life with the help of others. And Javier, one of the things that I think is important in your story here is how do you stop isolating from your, a lot of times when we're feeling negatively disposed in a Capricorn way, we isolate ourselves away from the world in prisons of our own making, right? Isolated within the castle walls, I guess you could say. Now think about its opposite decan, Cancer 2, where we see people celebrating with one another, right? And experiencing mirth, connecting. Now with Saturn here in Capricorn 2, you may be denied the ability early in life to build something that is ambitious, or you may have ambitious goals, but you may be frustrated with those ambitious goals. The second decan of Capricorn is associated with the Three of Pentacles. So the Three of Pentacles shows someone trying to create a beautiful cathedral-like structure. We have the artist, we have the government official, and we have the clergy, all represented within that card. And it talks about the cooperation of all of those folks to do something very ambitious. Now, the challenges that we have with that is oftentimes there is hubris associated with that. Hubris is represented in that card through maybe trying to build a structure, a spiritual structure through material means. So that might be one thing to consider too is, have you tried to build your life around material structures that ultimately crumbled with the connection with Neptune there, the dissolving of material structures, and put your spiritual faith within ephemeral things that is a difficulty that we have sometimes with Capricorn too, is that we put our faith in things that can't last the test of time, that are by their very nature are born in this physical reality and decay in this physical reality. So this is something to consider as well, is that one of the lessons with that Saturn there guiding the ship of your life is surrendering to working with others to be able to do something that's important to you, but also recognizing that we don't necessarily want to put all of our spiritual agency into a physical project or a physical form that will ultimately decay. Oftentimes, Saturn can bring benefits later in life. So this is something just kind of stick with it too. Like sometimes the great structure that you're creating won't come till much later in life with a retrograde Saturn. It's also probably a little bit more challenging having Saturn in the first house because you have a night chart. And Saturn is said to be the malefic out of sect in a night chart. So those restrictions that you have to live within may feel a little bit more oppressive with Saturn in a night chart. Now, you do have some other things in this chart that are going to help mitigate that. If we talk a little bit about Gemini 2 once again, right? Gemini 2, we saw with Kristen's chart that she had Mars, the ruler of that face, in the 12th house, one of self-undoing, one of maybe having a challenging experience with people that might undermine their experience in life. Now, with the Sun and Jupiter in the 6th house in that decan, here we have a different planetary energy here. There may be an identification with having choices that are irreconcilable. I imagine, Javiera, with being in a foreign country, you are probably away from some people that you care about. And I'm guessing. And maybe a feeling of belonging, of community. Although you can probably create that where you're at, it's not necessarily always the same as being connected to our roots, right? And that's an irreconcilable difference. I'm sure that there's a reason why you had to emigrate to Canada. And it was probably a really important one that was a difficult choice that you had to make. It may have been through no fault of your own. This is the thing that we see often with the 6th house. The 6th house is called the joy of Mars. And Mars was a planet of kakastuke, bad chance, bad fortune. And when we have the Sun and Jupiter here, oftentimes there's a lot of identification with things that come into our life that are not necessarily any fault of our own. It's just a bad hand that we were dealt. And I talk to sixth house people a lot about understanding that the journey is much more important than the results with 6th house. There is a system where we talk about primary versus secondary motion in the zodiac, clockwise motion and counterclockwise motion. Primary motion is the way that the planets are rising and setting over the course of a 24-hour period, and they go in a clockwise motion. So these planets are being brought away from an angle, the 7th house here, okay, by a very powerful force, a solar force that is eternal in traditional astrology thinking. And the planets, by secondary motion over a longer period of time, are moving in the opposite direction or are desiring to move in the opposite direction. So one of the beautiful things that I learned through my astrological education, through teachers like Nightlight and Demetra George and Austin Coppock and all of these other beautiful emissaries of astrology, is that when a planet is in a cadent house like the 6th house, it desires to move into the angle, to have the thing of the angle, but it's being pulled away from it by fate. So 7th house talks about completion, recognition. It is also an aversion to the ascendant. So that this is a place, sort of a blind spot where we may be toiling away behind the scenes without a lot of recognition. We may be desiring to bring things to completion, but through the twists and turns of fate, we are being pulled away from that completion. I have my beautiful daughter who's going to be joining us for Decan Walk has the sun in the 6th house. And I've often told some stories around her ambitious projects that she was trying to manifest, that for whatever reason of fate, that was not necessarily her fault, that she got pulled away from that recognition or that completion. And the way that we talk about that is, there is a type of recognition that only can come from an internal validation, not from any external source. And with the 6th house and with 6th house placements, that internal validation is so important. It says, you know what? I've gone through this journey to learn these skills. I'm imagining with the moon in the first decan of Virgo that you probably are very skilled in a lot of ways, that you are an eternal student, right? That you are somebody that is curious about the world, about philosophy, that has the heart and mind of a skeptic, that asks a lot of excellent questions. I have Jupiter in this decan, so I understand this territory. Sometimes we ask one question and it doesn't lead to an answer. It leads to 10 more questions. And I love that about Virgo 1. So these are some of the skills that you're learning, is being able to embrace the process, to be curious about life, to not let your circumstances crush your spirit, right? With Saturn in that 1st house, not letting the time that it takes to achieve your goals crush the spirit that animates the desire to pursue them. And then also the 6th house placements are saying, don't let the twists and turns of fate, sometimes the cruelty of fate, help you to not appreciate that you've grown and learned and benefited so much just from having the experience itself. And that's something that nothing can take away from you. This is how I talked to my daughter about this, is that she had an experience where she wanted to be the captain of her swim team, right? And she worked so hard at this. And then right as she was about to have that completion and that recognition, COVID hit and basically her season was canceled. And I tried to encourage her by saying, just the very fact that you became what you became, even without the external validation, that taught you so much about life, that taught you so much about believing in yourself, believing in the discipline that it takes to show up every day and to be somebody who is reliable, to learn a new skill. No one can take that away from you, not even fate itself. And I think that looking at the 6th house through that lens can be so very valuable, right? So I hope that's helpful for you. Yeah, Javiera, let's see. She's got some good feedback here. Okay. It could be, Javier says, maybe all the mental illness I have. Yeah, it could be some of it. So like with the ruler of the 12th house in its exile in the 6th, that could be something that pulls you away from, sometimes the 12th house is associated with having some challenges with our mental health. Javier says, I self-isolate all the time. That could be part of the Saturn part of it. Okay. Javier says, I've always felt that. I hope all my struggles lead to some peace. I think they can. I think they can. And sometimes that comes through just understanding ourselves a little bit better. Kate says, with Capricorn ruling your ascendant and Saturn there, in time, Javier, you will. I agree. Saturn brings us things sometimes later in life. And with a powerful Saturn, even though it's out of sect, there could be some real important insights that come to you if you hang in there and endure, I guess you could say, is a good word for Saturn. Javier says, I'm usually alone. Only my mom and brother live in Canada, 2 hours away. I'm a single mom, and I feel alone in that regard. And my father lives in Indianapolis, so I truly feel alone. Yeah, that isolation part is often a Capricorn type experience. But I do think that there's balancing energy that we can, if we understand that about ourselves, if we understand that we isolate, if we understand that we have distance between people that we care about, we can bring the balancing opposite energy to the table. We can find situations that can feel like supportive surrogates, etc., for community. We can build community through alternative ways. maybe Decan Walk is one of those. Maybe it's a different type of experience with a group. But I think I will also say this about Decan Walk. It is a lot of, we find a lot of unity as a land of misfit toys on some level. Like there's so many hermits in our group. It's like we're the gathering of hermits. That's what I love about it, is we can connect in our hermitage. I think it's a really fun thing. Javier says, if Saturn doesn't kill me first, oh, I think we'll be all right here. Javier says, I'm feeling like I'm moving through this now. I always feel like I'm learning as I go type of thing. A super healthy attitude with that, right? Kristen says, Javier, you show up here all the time with love to give, and I pray that you receive it back tenfold in your life. Me too. And this is the thing. Hopefully you're finding a supportive community just here on the Friday live streams, friend. And I know it's not the perfect type of connection. Like, it's not as intimate as it could be if we were face to face, but I hope that we feel the love that comes through these broadcasts each week. And that's the type of thing that we're going to do, I think, on a little bit even more of an intimate level when we do Decan Walk. Javier says, COVID didn't help my isolation, but I also has shown me that I can do it alone. But now I'm learning I can do it, but letting others in makes me even stronger. There you go. I love it. It says that. Thanks everyone. Sending all the love back to you. I end up inviting the wrong people and they become truly toxic. Well, hopefully we can be the non-toxic ones in your life, Javier. So, appreciate you, friend, and really do enjoy seeing you each week in the live streams here. So I hope that, if nothing else, that you'll keep joining us for the live streams each week, my friend. Kate says, I'm so happy all are here. I'm connected to you even in this. Really a privilege. Oh, sending all the love to you too, Kate. Appreciate you and looking forward to connecting on a deeper level with the Decan Walk. Okay, did we have any other charts? Maybe we can do one more and then I can wrap for the day. Let's see. Anyone else put their birth information in there? Stephen was in there. Stephen, are you still around? Let's get Stephen's up here. I wonder if I have Stephen's. I don't know if I do have your chart saved. Let's see. Stephen, do you feel comfortable sharing your last name? I might have your chart already saved in here, so that's the only reason I'm asking. Yeah, no problem, Javier. Appreciate you, friend. Appreciate you. Stephen Schatz. Let's see if I can find that. And if not, then I will just put the new information in. Oh, Stephen, where is your chart? I'm not seeing it, so I'm going to put it in as a new chart. And let's take a look at what we've got, Stephen. No way, Stephen. We got you. We got you. Let's see. So, Stephen, I'm going back to your comment where you put your birth information in there. So I'm going to go find that once again. Let's see. It's way back here in the chart, so just hang with me for a second. So we've got March 2nd, 3/2/1970, and 2:09 a.m. And that is New York, New York. Starts spreading the news. Stephen's coming today. He wants to see the heart of it. Let me save it, Stephen, so I have you for the future. There we go. Okay. Stephen, anything in particular that you're curious about with any of the decanic placements in your chart? So what we're doing is we're trying to preview some of the decans, and if there's a specific planet in your chart that you've been curious about, or a specific lifelong narrative that we might be able to unpack through that, or a current event, those are always helpful as well. I think sometimes we can cold read the chart like this, but one thing I like to do is like begin with a story, and then we can make the connections on the screen while you're telling your story. So let's try that part here. Stephen, you got something that's going on, or it's something that you're curious about with your chart? I see that you're a Sagittarius rising, Stephen the Jupiterian. And he has the retrograde Jupiter in the 12th house in Scorpio, ruling the chart as the helm of the chart. Stephen has the moon and his ascendant in the third 10-degree section of Sagittarius, which is related to the 10 of Wands. And it's a Saturn-ruled decan. And it can often lead to feelings of carrying a heavy load, a heavy weight. So Stephen says he wants to create a website for my new business. Well, Stephen, you have an interesting full moon coming up, friend. So just one thing I'm noticing right away from your chart. So let's go to the full moon coming up. So here's the full moon that we're going to be experiencing on Monday, the day that Decan Walk starts, Stephen. You are going to have the sun moving exactly over your midheaven and creating a full moon exactly on your IC, on one of your angles. So 11th house sun here, moving through the 11th house, wanting to create visibility for something that is you're passionate about, and being able to do it in a way that is true to your values. This is one of the things that we're working out with the full moon in Libra. So we talked a lot about Libra 2, the sun in Libra 2 today, where we can make an oath, an agreement, a binding contract. And in this case, we have the moon opposing it from the second decan of Aries. And that decan talks about making a royal decree, like being true to our values. So you, Stephen, to create a new website for your business, we might need to have a negotiation and with either a company, a business, etc., or a partner, somebody that could help you make the website. But you might have to communicate exactly what your values are to them so that they can help you manifest that. And so you're going to be sharing your creative vision, but you might need to team up with somebody to help you with the process. So I think that this is something that you could be starting to do as the moon is becoming full. And what is really fascinating about this, Stephen, is that this journey of working with others while also staying true to your values and your integrity is a lifelong journey for you, because you have the midheaven in the 11th house there at 14 degrees of Libra, where a lot of your work may be through negotiating with others, creating win-win situations, binding oaths and contracts. I would guess maybe also that you've done some work from home type of stuff too, because Venus, the ruler of your midheaven, is exalted in the 4th house. So either when we see Venus ruling the midheaven in the 4th house, oftentimes someone is carrying on a legacy from their family, like a family business, or they just enjoy working from home or with homes, or like trying to help people with domestic type situations. I could see as a Venus in the 3rd decan of Pisces, the exalted place there, could be through your imagination, through like writing creative fiction or science fiction or things like that. Are you an artist or a writer where you're writing about creative stories like that? That could be. I could just picture you writing in your office, or you're at your home and just going on fanciful flights of exploration, like Jean-Luc Picard on the Enterprise or something like that. Yeah. And I think that the other thing that I always notice in a chart is the helm, the steering wheel of the chart. And in Stephen's chart, Jupiter is in Scorpio 1 and in the 12th. So there may be a lot of twists and turns of fate that are related to both the home, the family, and the body, the identity, that could have brought maybe some grief early on in life too. That I often see people who have a planet in Scorpio 1, they experienced a loss of either a parent or a family member or a partner very early on in life, and that could be very painful. But with Jupiter there, you might have some real lessons in helping other people understand their grief as well. When we have a planet in the 12th house, sometimes we experience suffering, but for the very purpose of helping to alleviate others' suffering through empathy. As a 12th house Sun and Mercury native myself, I've gone through some really challenging things in my life, but I often find that people come to me with similar issues that I've gone through so that maybe I can help to alleviate some of their pain and suffering by just sharing my experience and sharing how I've gotten through that, and just helping people to understand that they're not alone with it. I'm checking in with the chat here. Kate says, I totally thought you were a Sagittarius, Stephen. Now I know why. He was Sag rising, right? Kate says, I'm so happy with this royal decree occurring in my 9th house with my moon, the first day of Decan Walk. Oh, I love it. Full moon in your 9th house. We're going to be starting a long-term higher education plan. That was awesome, Kate. I'm so excited for that. Kristen says, what is your new biz, Stephen? Yeah, let us know. Stephen says, I'm starting a home-based business. There you go. See? I have held so many different jobs. I'm an artist and working on a one-act play. Very cool. There you go, right? So, I think that seeing the ruler of the midheaven and understanding where it is can give us some real insights into where we'd be comfortable, right? Where we'd be comfortable, what kind of work would be comfortable for us. Stephen says, I'll be selling infused essential oils and talismans and also offer tarot and astrology classes. I'm a former K-8 teacher. Oh, that's awesome, man. Excellent. Javier says, I feel that unique life leads to a lot of insights. I agree. So, Stephen, I think that with the Sun, the North Node, and Venus all in the 4th house, I think you'd be pretty comfortable working from home and potentially could have some success doing so. This is a lot of the work that you might do might be behind the scenes with a 4th house planet ruling the midheaven. And again, it could be in service of something that maybe a legacy that's passed down to you from your parents. Were any of your parents writers or anything like that? Did they do any of that? That could be something that you might be working through as well. All right, my friends, I think that's what we've got for today. So I'm going to give you a little more, just the final sales pitch here. Thanks for hanging out with me. It's been so amazing to connect with you. I'm so grateful for all of you that come to these weekly chats and who share their stories and their vulnerability. Hopefully we've given you some insight into what Decan Walk might look like with some of the webinar type material that you might experience, the teaching material, but also through the interaction that we have as a group through the collaborative storytelling where we're sharing our stories while looking at the charts on the screen, breaking it down in the language of the decans, of astrology, of mythology, fixed stars, and tarot. We're going to be starting on Monday, October the 6th. I'm super excited. Please, please, please feel free to reach out to me at spencermichaud.com if you want to sign up. If you want to reach out to me via email, this is my email, spencermichaudastrology@gmail.com. There is a link in the chat here or the description of wherever we're at here that can help you to get more information if you have any more questions about the Decan Walk, but feel free to reach out if you need to set up a payment plan or if you have more questions about the Decan Walk that I can answer for you. I would love, love, love to have more of you hop on board. Your insight is going to be so valuable as a gift to the group. So if you're hiding your light beneath a bushel, let's come out into the light and share your wisdom with others, share your experience, even if it's sharing your difficulties in life. That can be so valuable for people too. So appreciate all of you. Thank you so much for being here today. We've got some nice comments coming in. Yeah, wishing you success, Stephen. Thanks, everyone. Stephen says, I also refurbish old Monster High dolls. That's cool. Very cool. Let's see. Javier says, I feel like Decan Walk will help me with my healing journey. I would love to have you there. Javier, reach out if you have any more questions. Okay. Kate says, please study with me, y'all. Kate's going to be there. My daughter's going to be there. We've got a good returning group as well. Would love to have you join up with us. Kristen, thank you so much for your contribution today. Thank you for this super chat. Really appreciate it. Kristen says, I'm still laughing at how I was like, just Mars, please. Don't think I'm greedy. And you said, so it went so beyond that. Well, this is a specificity we can get to, right, with the Decans. So hopefully that was a good demonstration of the powerful nature that they have for understanding ourselves and others and having empathy for others. So thank you that, friends. Javier says, I got to shut up Saturn in isolation. No worries, friend. Baby steps. Just see if it works for you. Thank you, Stephen. Appreciate you, friend. Thank you for coming to our live streams each week too. And if you feel like Decan Walk is the right thing for you, feel free to reach out as well. All right, my friends, that's what I've got for you. We're starting on Monday. Thank you for your participation today. Thank you for coming each week. And if do me a huge favor. Even if you can't do Decan Walk, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, keep coming on the Fridays, spread the word. If you can help me over this weekend, if you know somebody you think it would be right for, spread the word. It really helps. That word of mouth really, really helps. And here's the other thing you can do for me this weekend. We're coming up on a full moon where we might have to make some negotiations with others, but sending that love and appreciation to yourself and coming from a place of integrity, coming from a place of strong self-love rather than self-recrimination can really help when you're negotiating tough situations with other people. So if nothing else this weekend, just be kind to yourself, okay? Like that's the way we become revolutionaries in these challenging times, is through kindness, through love. Like look at the beautiful luminary that we just passed over this week with Jane Goodall, who understood that love and appreciation and understanding that every life form on this planet has value and has sentience and intelligence of its own, and being able to show that when we care and love for each other in so many different ways, that we can really be forces for good in this world. So let's take Jane's example and do that for each other. And it starts by being kind to yourself. It starts by loving yourself and being able to be gentle with yourself moving forward. And it's going to make it so much easier to share your light and wisdom with other people. So, friends, that's what I've got for you. Hope that you'll join me on October 6th. Thank you so much for being here today. And I will hopefully see you on Decan Walk, but if not, we'll see you the next time. Take care, friends. Peace.